You've seen it happen 100 times and never once thought about it. You're on the highway. You pull out to pass a semi. You spend 30 seconds next to that massive wall of steel doing 70 miles an hour. Then you move back into the right lane in front of the truck. And right as you do, the truck flashes its headlights. Once, maybe twice, then nothing. And you either didn't notice, didn't care, or spent half a second wondering what that was about before the next song came on and you forgot completely. Here's what you didn't know. That flash wasn't random. It wasn't a glitch. It wasn't the driver being aggressive or impatient or testing his high beams. That truck driver just told you something. Something specific. Something that in certain situations, on a dark highway, in the rain, on a curve, could be the difference between a clean lane change and the worst moment of your life. And you had no idea the conversation even happened. Let's start with what most people assume. If they notice the flash at all, the most common interpretation is that the trucker is annoyed. You cut him off maybe, or he's flashing because you're going too slow, or it's just something trucks do for no reason. All of that is wrong. Here's what's actually happening. A loaded semi-truck sits somewhere between 10 and 13 feet off the ground at the driver's eye level. When you pull in front of that truck after passing it, the driver has a view of your vehicle from an angle you will never have access to from inside your own car. He can see your rear bumper. He can see your trunk. He can see exactly how much space exists between the back of your car and the front of his truck. You cannot see any of that. You have a rear view mirror showing you a rectangle of highway and the front grille of a truck that fills the entire frame. You have no real sense of whether you're 40 feet ahead or 15 feet ahead. You're guessing. You're always guessing. The truck driver is not guessing. When a trucker flashes his headlights after you pull in front of him, he is telling you one specific thing. You are clear. I can see your taillights. You have enough room. It is safe. That flash is a trained, deliberate, conscious signal that has been passed between truck drivers and car drivers on American highways for over 50 years. Is the trucker saying, I see you. You're okay. Go ahead. And most of the people receiving that message have never known what it meant. But here's what most people get wrong about this. The common reaction once someone explains the flash is, oh, that's a nice little courtesy thing. Sweet. Truckers are polite. Moving on. But that undersells what is actually happening by a lot. Because this isn't just politeness. This is a safety system. And understanding why requires understanding something about the physics of driving next to a semi that most car drivers have never been forced to think about. An 18-wheeler loaded to its legal maximum of 80,000 pounds traveling at 65 miles per hour carries the kinetic energy equivalent of roughly 50 cars moving at the same speed. When that mass needs to stop suddenly, it does not stop. Not quickly. Not like your car. A fully loaded semi at highway speed needs somewhere between 370 and 525 feet to come to a complete stop under normal braking conditions. That is nearly the length of 2 football fields. Now think about what happens if you cut in front of that truck too early. Not dramatically, not recklessly, just a few feet too soon. You are now the thing that needs to stop existing in that lane before 80,000 pounds arrives at the speed of a highway. The driver's view from 12 feet up is the only reliable way to know if you're actually clear. Not your mirror, not your gut feeling, not how fast you think you're going relative to the truck. The flash tells you the person with the only accurate view of the situation has assessed it and confirmed you are safe. That is not a courtesy. That is information. Critical, specific, potentially life-saving information delivered in the form of a headlight blink that most people ignore completely. Now here's where it gets deeper than almost anyone realizes. The headlight flash is not a standalone gesture. It is one signal in an entire unwritten communication system that truck drivers developed and refined over decades, completely outside of any official training, any regulatory body, any government program. Nobody mandated this system. Nobody published a handbook. No driving school teaches it. It's spread entirely through culture. Driver to driver, truck stop to truck stop, CB radio channel to CB radio channel. Because here's the thing about long-haul trucking that people who haven't done it rarely understand. A long-haul driver can spend 22 days out of every month on the road, alone, in a cab, moving through states where they know nobody, sleeping in parking lots and rest areas and the back corners of truck stops at 2 in the morning. The road becomes its own world. And like any world, it developed its own language. Four-way hazard lights flashed twice after a merge means thank you. Headlights flashed means you're clear. High beams held means warning. Law enforcement ahead, accident coming up, something on the road you need to know about. A slow left-right steering wheel rock as trucks pass each other means acknowledgement. I see you, we're in this together, keep the rubber side down. None of this is written anywhere officially. All of it is real. All of it is in active use on American highways right now tonight. And all of it traces back to one era that changed trucking permanently. Go back to the 1970s. The CB radio, Citizens Band Radio, Channel 19. Before smartphones, before GPS, before real-time traffic apps, before any of the tools that modern drivers take completely for granted, truck drivers built their own information network using handheld radios and agreed-upon channels that anyone with a receiver could access. Speed trap on I-40 eastbound past mile marker 220. Accident blocking 2 lanes on the interstate outside Memphis. Bridge closure adding 45 minutes to your route. Ice on the mountain pass that the weather report hadn't mentioned yet. Truckers knew all of it hours before anyone else. Because truckers were everywhere. Because they talked to each other constantly. Because the road was their shared workspace and information was survival. The CB radio culture created something that no government agency or logistics company engineered deliberately. It turned long-haul truckers into the nervous system of American highways. A distributed, self-organized, real-time information network covering every major freight corridor in the country. The light signals, the flashes, the hazards, the high beams grew out of that same culture. The CB let you talk, but the lights let you communicate instantly, silently, across the distance and noise and speed of highway traffic where a radio call isn't always practical. By the time CB radio faded in the 1980s and 90s, the light signals were already muscle memory, already cultural, already being taught by experienced drivers to new ones at truck stops across the country. The technology changed. The language stayed. Here's the part that hits differently once you understand all of this. Think about how many times you have passed a truck on the highway in your life. Think about how many times those headlights flashed behind you afterward. Every single one of those flashes was a person, not a machine, not an automated system. A human being who had probably been driving for 8 or 9 hours that day, who had been away from their family for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, who was sitting alone in a cab somewhere in the middle of a state they don't live in the dark, doing the job that keeps the country's supply chain moving. And they took a moment to tell you, a stranger in a car who would never know their name, that you were safe, that they saw you, that you could go. People talk about truck drivers as the backbone of the economy. That's true in the logistical sense, but this is the human version of that same truth. That flash is a truck driver choosing to participate in the community of the road, even when nobody is watching and nobody is requiring it, and there is absolutely nothing in it for them. That is not a small thing. That is a very specific kind of decency that doesn't get talked about enough. Now here is the part that is genuinely changing and not for the better. The generation of truckers who grew up on CB radio culture, who learned the light signals from the driver who trained them, who taught them to the next driver they trained, that generation is retiring. Right now, in large numbers, the average age of an American truck driver is 46. The driver shortage the industry has been warning about for a decade is arriving in full. New drivers are being recruited and trained faster than at any point in modern trucking history. And training programs, which are already compressed and expensive, do not have a module on unwritten highway communication culture. There is no unit on what the headlight flash means or why the hazards are a thank you. You cannot test for it. You cannot mandate it. It lives in culture, and culture requires transmission. And the chain of transmission is breaking. Some veterans in the industry will tell you the light signals are already less consistent than they were 20 years ago. That younger drivers don't always return the flash. That the system is becoming regional and patchy rather than universal. GPS and collision avoidance technology and automated braking systems are taking over some of the safety functions the signals used to serve. The truck can see your clearance better than the driver can in some new models. The machine is replacing the human judgment that made the flash necessary, which means the day may be coming, probably sooner than anyone in the industry wants to admit, when a car pulls in front of a truck on the highway and the lights behind it stay dark. Not because the driver is rude, but because the driver never learned that this was something drivers did. Because no one told them. Because the person who was supposed to tell them had already retired. A 50-year conversation between strangers on the highway, ending quietly, one fleet at a time. So here is where you land. You passed a truck. The lights flashed. You thought nothing of it, or thought it was random, or thought it was the driver being impatient. But what actually happened was a driver 12 feet off the ground used the only accurate view of your vehicle's position to confirm you were safe, and then told you so. In a language developed over 50 years by an entire industry of people working alone on the road who needed to find ways to talk to each other. A language born on CB radio in the 1970s that outlived the technology that created it. A small act of human decency performed by someone who will never know your name, who will never see you again, who had been away from home for 2 weeks and had 6 more days to go. The next time you pass a truck on the highway and see those lights flash in your mirror, flash your hazards twice. It means thank you. The driver will know exactly what you mean. And if you think the unwritten rules of the road are interesting, wait until we get into what truck drivers actually say to each other on CB radio at 2 in the morning. And why some of those conversations have saved lives in ways that never made the news.